somebody doing better too. So we just completed chapter 1, the yoga of the despondency of Arjuna. Om Namah Shivaya. Om. Before we start, as we begin, everyone should have in the Kirtan book this. If not, there should be a Kirtan book next to you. This is the English translation of the Gita Dhyanam. Always in India or around the world, traditional way is we'll begin with this prayer, and usually in Sanskrit, of course, and we will. There's some beautiful recordings on YouTube of the Sanskrit chanting of the Dhyanam, etc. We'll share some of those as we go, but this gives us an opportunity to understand what the meaning of this prayer is. And we can talk about it for just a moment as we begin chapter 2. So we can repeat together. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness on us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf. People of purified intellect are the drinkers. And the milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. So we've been repeating this now for, today's number 6, I think, 5 days, 6 days. We can unpack it just a little bit. So the first line, of course, is just the statement of, well, it's more than just this, but the statement of what this Gita is. So the Bhagavad Gita is the story of Arjuna's enlightenment. But of course, we discussed this as we entered this, that the problem that Arjuna is suffering from here is actually a universal problem. So it's the story of Arjuna's enlightenment, but it's also the story of our enlightenment. So it might not be bit for bit, but that's the method. So, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, so no one other than Lord Krishna, and which was composed of 18 chapters of the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. Vyasa is attributed as the author of the Mahabharata, which is this great epic, which we've mentioned is a great epic indeed. More than 50,000 couplets, more than the size of the Iliad and the Odyssey combined. It said that the Mahabharata is the story of us. It's the story of our ancestors and also the story of us. The story of our ancestors is actually the story of us. So first,
one man wrote all
that. We could say channeled it.
Yeah.
Like that. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth. So, the one who allows us or supports us in ending this cycle, this samsaric cycle we may not feel like that, or it may feel like that we keep coming back here and somehow doing the same thing, engaging in the same thing over and over again. And if it feels like that, it might feel tiring. So, O Divine Mother, it's a prayer, of course. who showers the nectar of oneness upon us, who lets us know of our unity. Well, Bhagavad Gita, a recognition that the Bhagavad Gita, that the wisdom itself is my mother or is from my mother, and on thee I meditate. So I bring my awareness to thee and listen to thee. All the Upanishads are the cow, the milk cows. The milker is the cowherd boy Krishna. So just allegory, a beautiful allegory. We would have to go back to reflect on the relationship between man and the cow before the machines got involved. So before the factory farming and all of this got involved. So we can do that. We can see the relationship, and it's this milk coming from the cow. The cows are the Upanishads, the essential teachings, the highest teachings. The Gita is said to be the cream of the Upanishads. So it takes the highest teachings and sets them out in front of us in a way that we can, in this age, come to understand and imbibe. So the allegory is simply the cows, the milk itself is coming from the highest teachings. And then in order for us to understand it, Krishna is milking the cows. And then getting the cream, as it were. People of purified intellect are the drinkers, and the milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. So the one who has a pure intellect is the one for whom this is intended. And then my salutations to the Lord. Oh. Okay. So, what did we get out of the chapter 1? We had 2 days we just read. Mostly we read and we had some commentary. Anything that anyone would share? We were having a good discussion yesterday morning about chapter 1.
We're in the battle for our lives.
The battle for our lives. Oh.
In the mind of Kurukshetra.
And Kurukshetra again.
The holy battlefield.
Kurukshetra is said to be in different ways, but the person, the body, this body is said to be the battlefield. Does that make sense?
Holy God.
Yeah. If there's a battle going on, it seems to be going on in here. Sometimes we can say for my soul, like that. But what did we hear? So the build-up was happening. What were the events? We know that the two armies are gathered on both sides of the battlefield. Yes. We know that that the blind king is sitting on the sidelines, observing. We know that the battle drums and the horns start to blare. That there's an assessment from Duryodhana on the side of the Kauravas of the Pandava army. He minimizes the Pandava army. And we know that Arjuna asks Lord Krishna as the chariot driver to take him in the center of the battlefield. For what purpose?
Check out who he's up against.
To check out who he's up against. Beautiful. And as he does that, what does he come to see?
His friends, his neighbors, his teachers.
Yeah.
Kids of people of all ages.
Oh, yeah. So, and what happens through the rest of chapter 1? What are we seeing happen?
He's freaking out. He's
freaking out. That's beautiful. Could not have said it better, my dear. He's absolutely freaking out.
Yes.
So it's hitting him. There was a point at which he knew why he was going into this battle. But you notice that has all been set aside right now. Right? He's not reflecting on why he's there or what he's to do or anything like that. He's just freaking out. Thank you, Kartikeya. You want to sit here?
He probably expected a bunch of no-name faces that he could just be like, whatever.
Yeah.
This is evil people. take
Yeah.
it down.
Yeah. Oh, he had the notion coming up to that this was going to be very straightforward, and he knew what he was going to do, and he was battling against evildoers, right? And he knew that. He even repeated it again towards the end of the chapter when he's lecturing Lord Krishna.
Oh, did we go through that already? Yeah.
Well, he's lecturing Lord Krishna. That's that last part of chapter 1. He's telling Lord Krishna why this is a mistake. And as he's doing that, he's describing this scenario under which even if they are evildoers, even if they rape and murder and all of this, still my friends are amongst them. And look at what this will do. It will destroy the fabric of society. This is this idea that he's sharing. Okay.
Or it'll cleanse them of all the evil they are subject to, and it'll cleanse the whole slate.
Well, if you take a moment and reflect, what else comes of the situation? Is there anything else that comes? And do you have any way of relating to this personally?
Yeah, because a lot of ideas come about what I'm to do, and then I hop on that bus and take that very firmly as that's what I'm supposed to do with my life.
Oh.
Rather than like good guidance from my conscience or from a preceptor.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good observation. So he might be coming to the point, and we'll see, where, because he's laid all of this out, but then he says, but I can't do anything. Right, I'm powerless, I can't do anything. So he drops his bow at the end of chapter 1. Right. Oh. Okay, so we'll pick up from here, and there's a little commentary from Swami Satchidananda that's helpful. He speaks of it. So he comes into, at the end of chapter 1, he comes into a state of dejection, right? Yeah. He even described, my hair is standing on end, my mind is reeling. I don't know what to do, and this will get said here again shortly, but he's losing his faculties, you see that? Overwhelmed, a state of absolute overwhelm, right? Do you see the signs of fight or flight and how that works with each of us? So this is, if we're to see that this is dealing with my problem, then it can be very helpful to see that, to see how in life situations this buildup happens inside. So, there's so much symbolism in this. Paramahansa Yogananda, for example, has a 2-volume set on the Gita. He focuses so much on the symbolism of each word and each sutra, and he'll even talk about each individual instrument, the horns and the drums and all of this. So, and he has the ability to share stories about them and so on. So there is that. And also in that buildup, can you see the way when you're dealing with a stressful situation, something unexpected, you walk into a situation, you think you know what to expect, and you get there, and it looks completely different than what you'd expected. And fear comes. You had that experience? And there are perhaps some alarms. Where are the alarms coming? There's an alarm system in the body, right? So have you felt a buildup of tension?
Stomach, heart.
Yeah. Have you even felt a buildup of tension so much that you get to a place of just exhaustion, fainting or something like that? So sometimes we'll have fainting spells when it gets to be absolutely too much.
So many brainwaves.
Can't speak.
Yeah. And there is a consistency in terms of what we deal with and what Arjuna is dealing with. And Swami will talk a little bit about that here. He says in the first chapter, we saw Arjuna, the warrior king, who is supposed to protect the land from the unrighteous, come forward to do the job with the help of Sri Krishna. But when he saw his own kith and kin in opposition, he was moved by sentimentality and he momentarily forgot his duty. He underwent physical changes, shivering of the body, drying of the throat, and nearly fainted from despondency. So that is fight or flight. That is the self-defense mechanisms that begin to come within the body. I think we've all had experience with fight or flight, right? So this is the experience that Arjuna is having, is this fight or flight. So it's very common. We each get to see it, these physical changes. And then at the peak of that, he decided not to fight. His bow, which had never failed him, dropped from his hand. He lost courage and he sat silent in the chariot. Swamiji says, to interpret the situation allegorically, we should each think that we are Arjuna. Very often we fail to perform our duties because we get involved in personal attachments, for example, thinking, it's mine, it's dear to me, how can I do away with this? Wherever there's this personal attachment, sentimentality arises, and we fail to do our duties well. And this is Arjuna's situation. Now, Krishna will try to remind Arjuna of his duty. This is the entire purpose of the Gita. It is not that Sri Krishna is interested in making Arjuna fight a war and destroy some wicked people. So here he speaks a bit to the purpose. Why is Krishna doing this? And we'll ask that question again as we start listening to what Krishna has to say. Why is he saying this? Why is he doing this? What's the issue here? Oh.
Yes. To find his higher self, to
We can say like that. We can say like that. You know, we were reading together this beautiful book, Arna's book, last night. So we often read during the motherhood retreats, and sometimes at other times. It's just beautiful. This story, The Little Soul in the Sun, and the story is really our story. You remember it, Kalyani? Do you remember Little Soul in the Sun? Yeah. Oh. So, and we didn't know that there was a sequel, and the sequel is The Little Soul and the Earth. So it's the story of his coming. The little soul's actually coming in order to be forgiveness. And what, for those of us that participated in that reading last night, what was the lesson that's being shared that applies to what we're dealing with here? And here.
When you come, you forget.
When you come, you forget. You forget yourself, you forget why you came, you forget God. Little things like that. Little things. Yeah, you forget everything important. How would you say that, Kartikeya?
I was thinking to myself, Arjuna's next question to Krishna would be, if you're not going to fight, please save the women and children. And then it might be a little easier.
Well, Krishna will speak to all of this for sure. So, okay. So that is our situation. And even Arjuna, so just a comment from here, Arjuna is one of the greats among men. What does that mean? He's dharmic. He fights for the oppressed, for the poor. He gives whatever he has away to the subjects. He's so giving, so charitable, so kind, so compassionate. And he's only come to this war because that was the only choice that was given. It appeared that the only possible choice that was given was to do it, because the people were being so terribly mistreated, and he knew that with Krishna on his side, he had the ability to do something about it. or at least to try. And he would have said at that point, and I will die trying if need be. At that point, he would have said it. So even that, with such clarity of duty and strong intellect and ability to work things out, even then, the message of chapter 1 is he lost himself. He lost himself completely, and he forgot all about that. He forgot why he was there. He forgot the resolve that he'd made. And what did he forget most of all?
He's with Krishna.
Yeah, a little thing like that. The Lord of the universe is right here. And instead of me lecturing him, I could be asking him.
Yeah.
And so that's our situation.
It's extremely clever of his opposition to put children and his friends out there.
So, okay, so we'll pick up here. So Sanjaya said, when Krishna saw Arjuna overcome with sentiment, despondent, eyes blurred with tears of despair, then, and you'll notice this is the first time Lord Krishna speaks. So and by the way, he should be a central character in this. So we're 48, 49 slokas in, and this is the first time Lord Krishna speaks. Blessed Lord said, from whence arises this shameful and cowardly dejection, Arjuna, which at this dangerous moment bars the way to heaven? Swamiji adds, he uses the words unmanly, heaven-barring, and shameful dejection. He's trying to kindle, to wake something up in Arjuna again. He says, yield not to weakness, it does not suit you. Shake off this petty faint-heartedness. Stand up, scorcher of foes, wake up. So that's what he has to say. Stand up, wake up, you've lost yourself. I'll share a little commentary. This is from Swami Venkatesananda. He's very much the bhakti. He speaks of these first 3 sutras in chapter 2. And these are really the beginning of the teaching. The first chapter is all about our situation, the situation that we find ourselves in, having forgotten, being subjected to these forces where within our own psyche, where we can so easily lose ourselves and get everything backwards. Right? So the beginning of the teaching really requires that coming to that place of despair. It's very interesting when we look at our lives. When we're so full of ourselves, then we don't have the ability to listen. But what's happened with Arjuna is Arjuna has come through this build-up, and he's come through it so completely and looked at the situation, and he's come to the point where he realizes, but he hasn't said it yet, I can't deal with this. I don't know what to do. Right? This isn't what I thought it was. Yes? So he's come to that, and so he can't act. This is where he's come. So he's come to the point of despondency. Right? Breaking. He's breaking. Big time he's breaking. He thought he knew something. And now everything that he thought he knew is going to be tested. And he's starting to face, and I don't. So
it feels like there's a symbolism about taking the right action in life, and that in this story and in life, everything comes up to try to prevent you from taking the right action. And it feels like he's going to be presented with all these tricks, because first this was all lost in a dice game.
Yes.
And then there was a promise of 13 years that wasn't fulfilled. And now they're seeing yourself in, so it's like all these tricks are coming up to prevent right action. Just like you see it with addictions and anything we do in life where we expect one result, but it just
something happens, something comes up. Yeah.
Is that a correct interpretation?
It's a helpful interpretation, because that can lead you to the question, why is that? And then what is the purpose of this life if it's not to do good? These are very good questions, very insightful. And that's developed as well for us and with us in terms of this kind of dialogue. What is this that seems to be working against us? And we can say, this is also Krishna. And so what's the purpose of it? Krishna, by the way, Father, Christ, Allah. So this is not a sectarian affair. We're just dealing with a particular name in a way to relate to the Absolute. And we're dealing with a particular name that is both the highest and also very personal. So Arjuna has this personal relationship. This Krishna has been a friend. Yeah. And of course, when you say the 13 years, you're talking about the exile, where they had agreed to the terms of the exile and that they would be allowed to come back into their kingdom and serve their subjects again at the end of the 13 years, but that was taken away. So we'll read this commentary from Swamiji, and it'll speak a little bit to this as well. He says, Lord Krishna proves to be a superb diagnostician here. So he's a doctor, right? He's diagnosing what it is that Arjuna is dealing with, or that we're dealing with. What afflicted Arjuna was not compassion or a sense of righteousness. It was weakness of the heart, unworthy of a great warrior. It was disgraceful, and what was most important, since it was against Dharma, the will of God, it would close the gate of heaven upon Arjuna. It was sheer impotence. Yoga or religion is intended to break down the ego, which is the prison of the soul. So this speaks to your question. There's a process at work here, which is intended to break down the only thing keeping you apart from who you are and your own father and mother. Truth, spirit. There's only one thing that keeps us apart from it, and that is what is called ego, which is made of ignorance. It is this primal nescience, this idea that I am this body. And it's not just an idea, it's such a strong feeling that it doesn't seem to go away, although it's not true. And that's the story about the little soul taking this birth and immediately forgetting who he was. And it's so profound that we realized, if I knew who I were, if I really knew who I were, if I really knew that God is here right now, and I knew how to communicate with God and how to see God in everything here, that this life would be completely different from the experience that I'm having now. Right? So, and we see on the other hand, and it takes a while for us to see, the only barrier is me. Which will often, in a worldly life, it'll often lead us to want to kill ourselves, by the way, when we start to. But here, it says, no. What wants to die is that little self. It says, no, this isn't about physical something. This is about ego needs to go. Ego needs to go. So what Krishna is doing here is attacking the ego. And so we'll see it in this play. And what is that? I know what to do. Well, I don't know what to do. In fact, I don't know anything. I don't know where this came from. I don't know how it's made. I don't know who you really are. I know what you look like. I know what you say. I don't know anything about life. But there's this force inside us that puts stories to all of this and supposed answers. And then I walk around saying, I know. You say something and I say, I know. You say something and I say, no, you're wrong. That's not the right way to do it.
Strong opinions. That's ego.
But I don't know anything. you see. That's where Arjuna is coming to. He's coming to that point of saying, I thought I knew. I was sure I knew. So yoga or religion is intended to break down the ego, which is the prison of the soul. It's the only prison there is. You know, we feel bound. For so many years, I had felt bound. And then one day, I really looked around, and some shifts were happening inside, and I looked around, and I asked the question, but who bound you? And I realized, I did. Who dug that pit that you find yourself in right now? I did. So, speaking of this, I know everything. If I don't know everything, I can know everything. So, it's intended to break down the ego, which is the prison of the soul. And it demands unwinking vigilance to ensure that the sadhana, or spiritual life, or virtuous life itself, does not become a prison house, reinforcing the ego. So this idea of doing good, being good itself, and we see it, can also strengthen the ego, the notion of being separate, incomplete. And then we become a fixer. I have to fix everything here. Everybody's wrong. Everything's screwed up. I have to fix it. It's left to me to do it. Nobody else can do it. Everybody else is incompetent. So everyone, listen to me. Vegan diet. We'll start there.
Wear this.
Wear this. Get rid of your religion. You're all wrong. Or Christianity is the only one. So we're very funny people, we're very funny about this. So, but this is all prison stuff. And these clothes, they're prison garb. So virtue created and maintained by a wrong motive or egoistic attitude is prison. I'll show you. I'll teach you. Right? Like this. So, and Arjuna had found himself caught up in this notion of I'm going to have to do this. Right? I'm going to have to do this. And Lord Krishna is beginning to teach him, no, it's not actually you. Not in the little I sense. So what is needed is virtue as a fortress. But the difference is this: the key of the fortress is in your keeping. The key of the prison house is in another's. The spiritual hero dares to be virtuous. The coward is scared to err, though he would very much like to. The hero can go beyond the walls of the fortress, but remains within it because the glitter of the external world does not delude him. The impotent man imagines he is free in his dark prison cell. So we'll read a couple more sutras, and then I think one more, and then we'll take a break for the morning. So if we hear Arjuna's laid out a proposition in chapter 1 that seems very reasonable. From some perspective, it seems very reasonable. He says, it's better for me to die than them. It's wrong for me to kill. It seems very reasonable because it is wrong to kill. So, I mean, to kill someone is a terrible thing to do. So you could say from some perspective it is wrong to kill. So he's laid this out. He sees the enormity of it. But in the process, he's forgotten these important things. So what Lord Krishna does, seeing this, is he shakes him up. And he says, what is wrong with you? What has happened to you? Look at yourself. You're a great one, and you've forgotten your duty, you've forgotten why you're here, and you've forgotten about me. So he gives him a shot, and then Arjuna responds. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, how can I ever fight with the venerable Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship? It would be better for me to live as a beggar than to kill these great souls who have been my teachers. Even if I were to kill them, my enjoyment of wealth and desires in the world would be stained with their blood. The sons of Dhritarashtra stand before us. I do not know which would be better, for us to kill them or for them to kill us. If we slay them, we won't even want to live. I am weighed down with weak-mindedness. I am confused and cannot understand my duty. I beg of you to say for sure what is right for me to do. I am your disciple. Please teach me, for I have taken refuge in you." You catch a shift that's happening?
Yeah, he's asking questions.
He came to the point where he asked.
Yes.
Yeah. And that asking, what does that asking do? You recognize that in this build-up,
Humility.
he didn't ask anything. You do see that, right? Do we have that experience?
No.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we have the responsibility. We've taken on a responsibility. Do we have the experience of, in terms of trying to prosecute that responsibility, trying to do that duty where we see and feel that this is all on me? Right? You see how we can shut down and not ask, not consider. So, but here it shifted. So Lord Krishna gave him a shot, right? And then Arjuna spewed some more on the same line, but he's looking at Krishna. So he's starting to wake up and realize that I'm with the Lord, right? And then he says, "I am thy disciple, please tell me." So it's a shift. So you brought up this beautiful question earlier about it seems like there's something here working against us. But from this perspective, I'd say it's working for us, because it's bringing to this point where we connect back with the real, where we connect back with Spirit, with God. And we recognize, I don't know what to do. Please tell me. Right? And the Lord would say, that's the connection that's needing to be made. That's the connection that's needing to be made, and that connection will save us. And that's the only thing that will save us, because ego won't get us out of here. It just breeds more of the same. We see the state of the world today, and we can see what it does. Right? More disharmony, more trying to fix it. And everybody's trying to fix it, and everybody feels like it's on them to fix it. And it's too much. And this is the state of our world today. And so the stress is terrible, isn't it? The stress, the anxiety, all of this is terrible. And it feels like something's working against us and not allowing me to do the right thing. But when we started with the yoga of meditation, these two sutras, you were here in it, where this very strange sounding saying that the capital S self stands as both the friend of the self and the enemy of the self. So and we've seen this so much in experience with ashram, etc. We call it Ganesha. This factor, this force of the Lord that opens the gate or bars the gate. But it would be said for our own benefit. Why? So that we can come back to our source, come back to ourself. Okay, we should close this morning. Any other comment anyone would like to share? Question?
This just reminds me of all the stories that the ego tells to rationalize its decisions, and they're so convincing if I don't reflect on them. Like, like there'll be something from the conscience, but it gets covered over like almost instantaneously, and then the story. And that reminds me of like Arjuna had a very, systematic response to Krishna as to why not to fight the battle. And he felt
very
that
detailed.
Yeah. And that just reminds me internally of how stories can come about why something I should do should happen.
And there's no doubt,
right? And
there's no doubt that at that point when that's coming, it seems correct. Right?
Yeah.
But then Krishna says, no, it's exactly wrong. Not just a little bit. No, it's completely wrong.
Yeah.
And he'll proceed. And then in these next sutras, and then he shares why. Why is it completely wrong? Because you've forgotten who you are, and I'll share with you again. I'll help you to remember. Thank God for that. Okay, we close with the final prayers in RTPG. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivarnam Urvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivarnam Urvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivarnam Urvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyamamritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyanto Makarshit Dukhabhag Bhave Asuto Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Yotir Gamaya Mritor Ma Mritam Gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Universal prayer. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. Humble Sadguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki. Humble Sadguru Saraswati Muni Ki. Okay, let's stand for arati.